Have a seat. No one bites. All right. So, as I said, we're going to talk about the metaverse. It's a very broad, general term, and we hope that we found someone, I have faith in it, that can really explain what it means to her. She works for the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. That sounds like she really knows her stuff. Her name is Sofie Hvitved from Copenhagen. So Sofie, please come on stage and take us on the journey to try and find the definition of what is the metaverse and what does it mean for broadcasters. So the stage is yours.
Thank you, Niels. And hi, everybody, and welcome. Just find a seat. Amazing to see you. I hope you had a great morning. Not all of you were here for the first session, but really interesting diving more into audio. And obviously, the metaverse is nothing without audio. So how is audio going to be in the metaverse? And one of the things I find most interesting, as a futurist, is also social audio, using the audio to gain engagement, this extra layer of engagement. So that's also a thing that I sometimes talk a lot about. So let's see if I can get my presentation to work here. I don't know if you noticed there, we have an avatar. Woo! I really love that. I'm going to talk about that, obviously, and I was really looking forward to seeing my avatar. I find myself a little bit more slim in my avatar, which has a tendency. There is a member of the parliament in the UK that also joined in on these virtual worlds, and he presented himself in a very sort of muscular, with a very generous hairline kind of avatar that people were criticizing, right? Because how are we being presented in this sort of, digital twin life that we will have in the metaverse? So yeah, the thing you see there, to pay your attention to content creation. I'm going to talk about content creation today. So this is really an interesting video, or a short film actually, done by Disney, plus only available in the States. Where you're actually watching a documentary or short film, sorry, not a documentary, a short film, and then you can use your camera and get extra layers on top of that. And then suddenly the film will move into your living room or wherever you are. So that is very much the metaverse for me, the way of this whole interaction and merging of our physical and virtual lives. So just a quick intro, Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. How many of you know the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies? Yay! 2 people 3, 4 that I know, a Danish guy. Anyway, we are actually quite big and we operate a lot in the international scene as well. So most of our clients are international. So we're one of the oldest institutes working with the futures in the world, which is really nice. So we have a lot of legacy, like you guys. Not as much, but still a lot, right, that we're working with as well. Trying to constantly push ourselves more into the future and making sure that we are open and explorative towards the future. And of course, this is also something that you as a media company has to be open to and be explorative. So my own this is the avatar that I had. I spent maybe 2 minutes on creating that in Decentraland because I wanted to visit Viceverse. Have you been to Viceverse yet? In Decentraland? Anybody? I'll show you later how it is, which is really kind of an interesting experience. So that's me in Decentraland. I'm a futurist. I'm head of media, which is really, for me, a very unique position at the Institute because I only focus on the future of media and communication, hence, obviously, the metaverse, which is really a huge part of the way that we are moving towards, right? So I'm also a member of the Danish Media Board, so I'm in the group of 7 people deciding who gets the money, which I don't because there is so much politics around it, so I just have to say yes or no to, if they fill out correctly or not, which is a shame with innovation because that sort of closes the gap on a lot of innovative projects, unfortunately. And I'm a master in media science, and I used to work in DR, Denmark's radio. You know DR, right? Yeah, or broadcaster. And I created a conference called New Media Days back in the zeros about traditional media and new media. And we're still in the same place, right? Just suddenly it hit us very hard, and now we have to run even faster. So I want you just to think a little bit about, now Niels, he asked also before the session, right? So do you know the metaverse? But what is your opinion about the metaverse? How do you see it in relation to your work? So I would love for you to just reflect on that. And if one of you would like to share your thoughts, I would love to hear it before moving into the session. No, Anne can't do it because she's creating stuff. You're going to meet Anne McKenna later. Anybody? Come on. No need to be shy. A quick one. Is it too difficult? Yeah, there we go. Please say where you're from as well. And the microphone. There you go.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, it
To
works.
warn
Okay.
you.
I'm Nathalie from France Télévision, France TV. I've got a question about your first example. For me, this is AR. It's not Metaverse. So that means you take your smartphone and there is a something on your smartphone who is in the saloon just in front of your TV. You know, the first example. And for me, it's not Metaverse. So is there?
Love it.
I don't really answer to the question, but
But it does actually, and it's a great bridge. So thank you very much for that comment, because it's a great bridge in moving into what is the metaverse actually, right? So before we go there, I just want to say, as a futurist, the future is already here. It's just very unevenly distributed, right? So we see a lot of technology supporting what the metaverse is, and I'll get back to what I believe the metaverse is. I don't think I agree necessarily with the other people who are working with the metaverse, but this is the definition that we have at the Institute, right? So I don't know if you've seen this, but this is something called firsthand, that where you can actually, instead of having the controllers in VR, you know, it's so good in recognizing your movements that you can really navigate just with your hands when you use the VR, which I think is really interesting. This is a video that just came out, was released a couple of weeks ago from Meta. So I'm just going to show you a little bit answering your question about what is the metaverse.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day, this lecture hall will be made of code. And though they're virtual students, what they'll learn together is real. A surgeon will be able to practice as many times as needed in the metaverse before laying her hands on a real patient. These students aren't really back in 32 BCE, but they can still watch Mark Antony debate in ancient Rome. The metaverse may be virtual, but the impact will be real.
And this whole thing about the merge of the real, of our physical reality and our virtual reality, I think this is really something that we dive a lot into and think is one of the most important things when we look at the metaverse, right? So the metaverse is obviously much more than meta. The metaverse is much more than Second Life. You know, we have a tendency to try to put it into one technology or put it into one company or because we're trying to grasp it, right? And right now it's much more than this. So this is a guy called John Radoff. Well, I just said John Rad there in the source, but he's John Radoff, and he's trying to sort of capture the complexity of the players within the field of the metaverse. There are so many layers of the different kind of companies working towards the metaverse. And I'm not going to dive into this, right? Just to show you, this is a complex field, and it is much bigger than most people think it is. And a lot of money is being put into this at the moment. I think it all comes down to new audience expectations. You know, we're having this thing about people want it faster, easier, better for them, hyper-personalized. Some of the things that I see in the media industry that I find most interesting are these kind of curation 2.0, hyper-personalized, curated experiences in real time that, you know, based on actual real-time consumer behavior, user data, and insights, and object-based media, modular media, and AI-based media. All these things, right, they also point towards the metaverse, just in a much more immersive way. So your future audience as a direct-to-avatar, like the one you just seen there, right? You have to try and figure out how can you reach them with new kind of content. The picture there is taken from Tommy Hilfiger. They have a really progressive way of working into the metaverse. So you can actually now already buy a lot of the different clothes that they have. You can buy that inside the parallel world called TommyHilfigerParallel.com. So you can go in there and you can get the same kind of outfit, because obviously you want to represent yourself and what you stand for and your identity in this parallel world. You can check it out and see. So you can buy it for like $3. And then you can use it in Ready Player Me, which is a platform for creating avatars that you can actually use on 2,000 different sort of platforms. So they're trying to work on a sort of interoperable way where you can actually take your digital assets around. All right. So a few facts, or not facts, but a few predictions. We do not do predictions at the Institute. We are looking into possible futures. But by 2030, it is entirely plausible that more than 50% of live events could be held in the metaverse. So this is a prediction that McKinsey did. And that's really interesting. It's also interesting regarding how do they define the metaverse. Getting back to that. The average internet user might spend up to 6 hours a day in the metaverse experiences by 2030. And a lot of different predictions say much, much more, depending, again, how you define it. This is McKinsey, a report, both the former one and this one, from a report called Value Creation in the Metaverse. So if you're interested in this, obviously go read some of these reports. It's really interesting reading and understanding the depth of it. Before I dive into more examples, I just want to show this. I love this video because it explains the situation we're in right now. We're in the same situation as we were with the internet back in the 90s. We didn't know what it was going to be, and we had no idea how it's going to affect our lives.
But you know, I think about this, and what about this internet thing? Do you know anything about that?
Sure.
What the hell is that exactly?
Well, it's become a place where people are publishing information.
Right.
So everybody can have their own homepage. Companies are there. The latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Yeah, but you know, it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I mean?
Reacting, right?
There's a difference.
There is a difference.
It's not a huge difference.
What is the difference?
But you can listen to the baseball game whenever you want.
Right.
Too.
Oh, I see. So it's stored in one of your memory deals,
Exactly.
and then you can come
That's
back
the
a year
RAM
later.
thing you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Do tape recorders ring a bell? I just don't know. What can you, just knowing me the little you know me now, what am I missing here? What do I need?
And I think this is the question that we're all asking, right? What is it that we're missing here with the metaverse? We don't understand it. We have a tendency to say, nah, you know, and it's in a way too big of a timeline. It's like 5 years from now, 10 years, 20 maybe even, you know, that this will actually affect. But if you look back and you see how much this evolution of the internet, you know, it took some time, but it has definitely changed the way that we are creating content. And I think that the metaverse and the move towards that, combined with AI and a lot of other technologies, is going to sort of change the way that we create content in the future radically. And we do not understand it. So I'm going to take you on a really, because I only have 30 minutes, right? So I'm going to take you on a really quick run through of some of these things. And if you have any questions, you can ask them when we're at the panel as well. So please fill in. So how do we get here? Just a quick sort of way off into where we are right now. We talk about a lot of different phases of the internet. We also talk about Web3, the whole decentralized next phase of the internet. You know, it started with the internet of data, you know, internet of people. Once we had social media, user-generated content, then came all the things and devices. You know, we were connected in a new kind of way, sort of the last decade. And now it's the internet of place. We have immersive technologies, we have avatars, and we have this new sort of virtual economy, this new virtual structure lying underneath. We do not know whether it's going to be Web3 and open, or it's going to be proprietary and sort of be similar to the whole Web 2 movement. We really have to be aware of that. We do not know where it's going to go, but it is equally plausible that it can go in these different ways. But we are moving towards something where we're taking our heads out of this thing, the Sensorama machine, which was the first sort of VR kind of experience that you could have, like an immersive experience, because technology is getting smaller and smaller. It's getting more and more invisible. And the same thing is going to happen with this technology that sort of underlines and supports the immersiveness that we're moving into. So what is the metaverse? I think that we have to try and take it out of this virtual reality, virtual sort of places like Decentraland and Sandbox and Roblox and Fortnite, which is really pushing it, right? And two of the speakers who are getting their microphones mic'd up, they're talking about some virtual places that they do productions in virtual production, right? But I believe that the potential when we move into this is much more a combination. It's like this seamless convergence of our physical and virtual lives, and it has overlapping realities. We have realities that are virtual that we're going to have to deal with equally and value equally, or at least somehow equally, with our physical reality. I think the kids know it. You know, they like to have, Robux for the Roblox, and knowing they can buy digital assets, and it's actually they get emotional connected to it. A new report just came out that shows how emotional connected you can actually be with a digital asset. And I think the boomers in the room, or at least myself also, sorry, have a really hard time dealing with this and understanding this and figuring out what to do with this, right? And it's really amazing all the different things that might be possible with the new technologies that are coming. So to answer your question, a little bit about what do I believe is the metaverse. The metaverse is everything in between our virtual and physical environment. It's like 3D displays, augmented reality, diminished reality, really interesting, where we can take stuff away. I think we're going to have a lot of that, removing of garbage and ugly people and voices you don't want to hear. A lot of potential there, right? Also a lot of potential of creating a kind of a not real world, or is it real? What is real? I think this is really something we have to dive into. And what are the consequences for our society? So it's interactive wearables, invisibles, things moving into our body, right? Getting closer and closer. This whole biotech is really interesting to watch. Augmented virtual reality, of course, and haptic suits. But I do not believe in the Ready Player One scenario, if any of you have seen it, where we're all standing in a haptic suit with VR headsets and escaping from the physical world. It's much more going to be a combination, I think. But bear in mind the brain-machine interface that Elon Musk is working on with his neural link. It's actually moving forward. Our ethical boundaries are moving. And we also already now have devices that can read our brainwaves and understand what we actually want with quite a good precision. So how close will these technologies come to our bodies and our minds, and how invisible will they be? All right, moving on. What part do you think is most relevant for content creation in the media from what you just saw? Think about that. If one person would like to give it a try, what do you think in your sort of content creation could be relevant at the moment? I'm a big fan of awkward silence. No? Okay, so just think about that and maybe take it back to your editorials and talk about it and see, are there any possibilities where we should actually start to be aware of this? Because yes, it is a long-term perspective, but you all need to act now in order to know what is coming and be there when it starts, So it's kind of this thing about moving trial and error and get to know it and all these kind of things. I have a slide in the end where I'm giving some tips on how to dip your toes in this, right? So a few examples. I think this is really interesting. This is the Viceverse that I told you about. This is my avatar. You can only enter Decentraland, a virtual world. One of the virtual worlds, it's similar to Fortnite or some of the other games, but it's a place where people have paid tons of money to buy land. For instance, in Sandbox, where you could buy land next to Snoop Dogg, and it was extremely expensive, lots of millions of dollars. So they have their headquarters now inside this Viceverse, which is built by an architectural group called BIG, Bjarke Ingels Group, which is a really famous kind of, actually Danish architecture. But I find it very weird right now to walk there on my desktop. It's not really in VR or anything, it's just walking around with this cartoonish figure. I cannot navigate and I have no idea what to do. Another thing here, I interviewed a guy from a company called Synergy XR. This is something he filmed with his iPhone 12 Plus. Then you can just film the environments, or scan the environments, and create 3D memories of your vacation. So this is a museum that he has just taken into a room in VR. So you can actually go and relive this whole stage, and take it inside and actually do the presentation there and experience it in VR. This is also a thing I find extremely interesting, the whole augmented reality and how to take that into storytelling, how to take that into the way that we are experiencing things. The new House of Dragon, you can actually get an egg. It's kind of it's made by the same people that made Pokemon Go. Get an egg, you can raise it, and then you get a dragon, and it goes around you in your environment. It's kind of cute, right? It's kind of cool. This is the Snap glasses, spectacles. Not going so well, by the way, for Snap right now. Losing a lot of value at the moment because they don't deliver. But this, I think, is interesting in the whole idea of integrating this in your storytelling, adding these extra layers and experiences in different stories and explaining, because it's a very empathy-creating medium to do these things and to actually get it into your environment. The way I normally also describe it is, we have the interface on a flat screens. That's where we came from. Imagine that all this interface is going up into the environment. It's going up here instead. And we have to figure out how can we create content on that. This is the New York Times. They're really interesting to follow. They're a research and development team. They did this during COVID. They saw a huge problem that people didn't understand what masks are doing for COVID. So they created a mask that you could actually move into with your phone. And then you could see what happened. You can explain things in a new way when you have this new kind of way of letting people move around in these things. This is also interesting. This is HoloLens and Unity. This is a guy, like just a regular private dude who's working on trying to take all these educational things up and make them interactable in the environment. And that code is actually open, so it's open source. So you can go and take it down. And so if you just use HoloLens or Unity, you can actually go and make these things yourself. And I think it's quite interesting and see what can actually be done already now. And this is something that I think all broadcasters or content creators should at least look into. Maybe not the people who work in the sound department, but everybody else, in order to see how can you elevate some of the storytelling that you're doing. I think a lot of the things happening right now is this kind of empowerment of the content creator. Content creators, the users will become prosumers, so they both produce and consume at the same time. So this whole creator economy is just moving way ahead of things. I don't know if you know Scene TV. I saw them at a conference half a year ago. I'm just going to show you a little bit about how they involve people, young users around the world, and try to empower them with the use of their AR tools.
What should you never say to an assault survivor?
Does wearing a niqab make you a terrorist?
No! Have you seen this?
Honestly, it's game-changing.
It says here your statement. It should say racist.
Don't put plastic in water.
My sense of expression is validated.
I am seen.
I feel seen.
We are seen.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
So what they do is that they try to give some tools to users around the world to tell their stories. So they make more like snack bite stories, right, around the world that is being elevated by sort of these extra filters that they can use in order to create some nice content. That is empowerment of journalists around the world. Also, the avatars. I don't know if any of you have seen the alter ego. Here you go.
Hi, Scrimes, and you're about to watch a sneak peek from Fox's new singing competition show, Alter Ego.
Whoa! This is freaking nutty nuts!
The show is to see who is going to be the next digital pop star. A digital pop star is just purely about your talent and not how you look. The singers basically create their fantasy pop star version of themselves.
Do you identify as emo?
I guess my avatar kind of does.
The singers are backstage and their performance is being captured, then mapped onto their avatar who is on the stage performing for us.
What?
It's super wild. I mean, it's cutting edge technology, something that couldn't have been done before now.
People always judge me by the way I look, but being different is exactly what makes me special.
Like, I know a lot of people who feel a lot more accepted in the digital realm. I know I do. The premiere night is going to be awesome. Masked Singer and then Alter Ego.
And
you guys have
really
to tune
interesting,
in.
Right?
Well,
because that you really see also that
But
a lot of,
it would be
especially
nice.
maybe the young people, Generation C. Sorry. Oh, it's just
Hi,
going
Scrimes,
on.
and you're about
There
to
you
watch
go.
a
There you go. A lot of young people especially feel more like themselves in their virtual worlds than they do in the physical worlds. Now, is that an issue? We have to at least consider what are the consequences, but we also have to understand how they live and how this might impact where we're moving into, and how you can actually make news for these, not nude avoiders, but news outsiders maybe, that want to have news spread in a different world, a different way, where they feel comfortable in meeting the news. So I will not ask you to share a project, but I would ask you to think about a project that points towards the immersive metaverse in your company. Do you have any? If yes, how many of you know about it? Is there being worked on something with this? Like, what is your strategy moving towards the metaverse in your companies? This is actually one of my favorite quotes, and then I'm going to dive into AI really quick before we move to the panel discussion. This is Adam Mosseri, he's head of Instagram. Big tech is also talking about giving up control. This is the thing, that the metaverse is not just about this immersiveness. It's also about this whole fundamental thing that's lying underneath with who owns the data, who owns the creations, how do we earn money on our creation, and all these kinds of things. So he knows this, Adam Mosseri. There's a fundamental tension between a centralized platform like ours and a decentralized technologies like blockchain. but the world is changing. Important thing, right? If world is changing constantly, the greatest risk of a platform faces is not competition, though competition is a huge risk. It is that the world changes to make what you do irrelevant because you're not willing to lean in and change along with the world. And I think this is a very good quote for media companies to keep in mind, because you do not have the right to win just because you are a legacy company. You all know the example with Blockbuster. We have plenty of examples showing this. Nokia, we can keep on going. So keep staying relevant. I think the whole idea with the utility and the blockchain that can build new engagement, new ways of having subscribers. Check out Time Magazine. They're changing their whole subscription model to NFTs. I'm not saying NFTs is the way to go. NFTs are having a hard time now. They're going down the throw of disillusionment. People are not really, there's a lot of crypto bro happening there, but there's also a lot of potential. A lot of potential for engagement, for new user engagement and new ownerships, and a lot of utilities that is in these built inside the NFTs. Non-fungible tokens, for the ones of you who don't know. Going quick with this, you can dive into it later, scraping the surface. Condé Nast is going with the Web3 because they want to be on forefront of the culture. I think we are seeing this WordPressification of media production, and you have to be ready for this. A lot of things are happening now that is making it easier and easier and easier to produce. I overheard that you thought that making podcasts is a really expensive thing to do and it costs a lot of money. I think we're moving into an age where content production is getting more and more sort of cheap and more empowered, so more and more people can do it. This is one of the things I find most interesting, sort of AI-generated content. How many here know about DALL 2? GPT, exactly. So I would say this is next level DALL 2.
This is a box, a magical box. This box can make any idea real.
Right? But this is interesting. How do you create content when everything is so easy? I saw the big green room you have here as well. Like, where will this go when AI and the technology is getting better and better? We also see this in the way of using AI to create the content. And it's starting to getting into movie. Right now, it's only pictures that you can create by prompting something, right? But it's starting to be other things, and you can actually these layers over here is AI creating the images on top of the physical world. It's interesting what you can do with that, right? So it's kind of this whole idea of layering and experimenting and moving further and making AI a content creator, your coworker, that creates content together with you and that you can use to elevate your products. This is also the thing.
I'd like a corn
just see this one. That's a speech.
no.
Speech to content.
Corn on the cob in a tiling pattern. Yeah, okay. Need something else to make it interesting. Let's stylize it and add some pink flowers. Yeah, perfect. Can we make it bigger? Yeah, great. Cool. Let's buy it.
That's how you buy your future carpets and stuff. You can just say what you want. It's being created. You say buy, boom. You say what you want. You get the content that you need. I'd like an Indian, I like this kind of movie, but it has to be similar to Ready Player One. Boom. When will we go there? I think it's really interesting. This is the Build-A-Bot inside Meta. They do the same. They say what they want and it shows up. They say what music they want, it comes up. So you're just asking for things. I think this is really interesting when it comes to the future. This is an article I wrote, and I know I'm going over time, but I got 2 minutes extra. What if 99% of the metaverse is created by AI? And I think this is a future that you might be at least paying attention to regarding the competences that you have in your organization, the tools that you're starting to learn, the language that you use when you discuss content production. This is something that I think that everybody should need to look into at least and see, okay, how could this impact, and should we maybe start to look into these things in the way that we create content moving forward. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Like this is also, for instance, the optical cameras versus a GoPro version of tracking. So, sometimes you have to either use millions of dollars, like your studio, or you can actually just use a couple of $1,000s with AI, and then you have the same technology. And it's going beyond the uncanny valley. I find that very interesting, that we no longer, we have these cartoonish avatars now, but the technology, and as soon as also the connection, I know we're going to talk a lot about, because of course we have to have the connection and have the data being transferred around, because right now we cannot, and I think we will discuss this in the panel, there is a limit on how many people you can have inside these virtual worlds and these experiences that we have. But I think it's really interesting to look into the potential and where we might be heading with this. So just 5 tips before I stop to be metaverse ready, or at least something that points towards something that we do not yet know what will be. Play around with apps and lenses, as I showed with the augmented reality. They're already there in in Instagram and Snapchat, in YouTube. They have stuff as well, and you can actually pretty easily play around with some tools like that. Buy a pair of VR glasses if you don't have it already. Buy an AR developer kit if you're a little bit more curious. See how you can actually create more sort of AI content. Get a crypto wallet. I know it's kind of a bad word to say crypto at the moment, but get one. Try to buy an NFT. And don't buy one of the expensive ones, just buy the ones that cost like, 1 cent. There are loads of them. The OpenSea platform, the sales of NFTs has gone down 95% the last couple of months. So we're seeing really a dive into, we don't know where we're going to head with that. Create an avatar and visit a virtual world. And I think that you can get a lot of also good advices from some of the people joining the panel now that are actually working with it, because it's called Meet the Makers. I'm not a maker. I'm just talking about how the future might be, trying to take you 10 years from now and see the reality that will hit you very hard if you're not aware of some of the things that are going on behind the scenes in the media production as well. So remember, the media in Metaverse is not an it's an evolution, sorry. It's not a revolution. It won't happen tomorrow. It won't happen in 1 year. It'll take a lot of years for this technology to be mature, for people to adapt to it. We do not know how it will go, but we definitely will be another place in 10 years from now. And remember to be aware of all the challenges, of course, that comes with this. We have 4 scenarios at the Institute that we have built. So you can go in and check some of the really important questions that you should ask yourself when you're starting to work into these sort of new immersive realities. So, I made it all. Thank you. Thank you for listening.